If you're planning to get a second cat but are worried that your cats might not get along, then this video is just for you. First of all, I think getting a second cat is a great idea. I think that most cats benefit from having another friend around and they will be mentally healthier. But we're all worried about that cat fight, the howling, the yowling, the use of the litter box, the problems that can come from having two stressed cats in your household. But for most of us, it does not have to be that way if you follow the right procedures. My name is Francisco. Welcome to 9 Lives to Live. On this channel, I work with my 3 cats, Calypso, Skyfall, and Mr. Muffin, to help you improve the lives of your indoor cats. A study on cat introductions that surveyed 375 people that had recently adopted a cat from a shelter found that 50% of their cats did not get along. But the study also found that 50% of the people had had no introduction period for their cats. So I'm actually really surprised that 50% of the cats got along with no introduction period. That's actually amazing to me. But I'm not criticizing. When I first got cats, I did exactly the same thing, and it was because I didn't know how to do it better. Many of you might have heard that the best thing to do is to introduce cats slowly, but what does that really mean? In general, I don't think it's a good idea to think of cats as people, but let me give you an example that might give you a sense of the emotions that are involved. What if one day you got home from work and you found that there was somebody else living in your house, and the authorities told you that they were going to stay living there, and you really didn't have much of a say about it? What would you feel? Resentment? Anger? If nothing else, you would loudly complain about this new situation. That's how your cat might be feeling if there is no introduction. Now think about it. What if you actually had a new neighbor and you talked once in a while, you knew the person, maybe you had a couple of barbecues together, maybe you played some board games together, and at some point it became necessary for you to share a home. How would you feel about it then? Maybe it wouldn't be great, but it would be a very different situation. So your goal is to make your cat's experience of a new cat in the home closer to the second scenario than to the first. Critically important is that they do not begin their relationship with a confrontation, with a face-off, with the evil eye. So the objective of the introduction period is to make your cats aware of each other and familiar with each other without actually triggering a confrontation. Now, this might take a very short amount of time. It could take several days, or it could take a couple of weeks. But the most important thing is not to surprise your current cat with the new cat. So the first thing to do is plan ahead. Where are you going to put the new cat? In what room? It's better if they have a separate room where you can set up a litter box, the food dishes, toys, a scratching post, etc. If you don't have an extra room, it might have to be one of the bedrooms. And if you have a very small space, that becomes increasingly difficult. And I will have some suggestions about a very small space later on in the video. It should also be a space where someone is frequently there so that the cat will not get lonely and wonder what's going on. Why has it been put away in this room all alone? Secondly, you're going to use mealtime as a way to create positive associations between the cats. And so that means that you will have to establish a feeding schedule so that you can feed them at regular times near to each other. Now, if at all possible, don't put the new cat into a space that is a favorite of the old cat. So if they have a favorite room where they lie in the sun or the place where they sleep at night, if at all possible, don't put the new cat into that space. When planning ahead, also consider the space that the cats will be in after they are introduced. It's usually useful to have some place where they can go up, because many times cats will feel safer if they can actually go up or keep a little bit of distance from the other cat. When you bring in a new cat, make sure that the cats don't see each other. So take your current cat and put it in a bedroom while you bring in the new cat and put that cat in its separate space. The goal again of this is to avoid a face-off, to avoid a confrontation, and many times for cats that happens visually. So if you avoid them looking at each other, you will avoid that initial face-off and confrontation. So now you have a situation where you have 2 cats in 2 different rooms with a door in between them. They will become aware of each other very quickly. For cats, scent is very important. It's one of the ways they become familiar with each other, but also one of the ways they mark their own territory. So help them to smell each other by exchanging some of their property, so to speak. some of the bedding, some of the toys, maybe the scratching post. Switch them around so that the cat can smell the other cat's scent and become familiar with it, become aware of it. Something else that you can do along this vein is to switch spaces. But do this again without them seeing each other. This is particularly useful if your cats are starting to get a little antsy and being restricted in their space. Now you want to start creating positive associations with the other cat, and so you will want to start feeding them near the door that separates them. Give them their meals at the same time and just put them near the door. If they become distracted or start to vocalize, separate the bowls a bit and then move them closer together as they become more familiar and more aware of the other cat. Eventually, you will be able to have them eating their meals right across from each other, and it will not be a problem. You can also do the same thing with treats. Another great motivator is play. So start playing with them next to the door. If you are lucky, the cat on the other side will also start trying to play. They will stick their paw underneath and try to reach out for the toy. Sometimes the cats start actually playing with each other with their paws underneath the door. This is a very good sign, especially if it's not accompanied by hissing or growling. Once you reach this point, you can actually crack the door open and let them see each other. But don't let them do the evil eye. Don't let them get into a stare down. Open the door, let it crack a little bit, let them see each other, and then distract them in some way with a toy or with a treat. To do this, it's usually best to have some help so that you can have one person on each side of the door. A little hissing is okay, but if there's growling or anything more aggressive, close the door and let them separate again. Try it again a while later or the next day, whenever you think the cats have calmed down a bit. This next step is to give them full view of each other. Now you can do this through a screen door, you can do this through a baby gate, you can do this through glass doors, but one way or another, let them see each other fully, but again, try to avoid the stare down and the face off. When my friend Jenny adopted one of her cats, Athena, she and one of her current cats, Shambi, got into a stare down and she didn't realize it. And it created tension between the two cats ever since then. I'm not saying that that's definitely because of that stare down, but it might be, or it might just be their personalities. If that step goes well, where they can actually see each other fully and there's not a lot of hissing and so forth, then you can let them into the same room. But again, don't let them stare each other down, don't let them get into a face-off. So what you want to do is you want to distract them. Make sure that you have treats, you have toys, you have something to distract them so that when they come into the same room together with each other, they have something else to do besides focusing on the other cat. A little hissing is normal, but if it becomes very aggressive, separate them so that the tension does not build up. And then try again a while later or the next day. Fortunately, I never had that problem because my cats I adopted together. They were from the same litter, or at least cousins. And Mr. Muffin I adopted when he was a tiny baby. Now, if you live in a small apartment or in a studio apartment, you don't have a lot of options. And so you have to do the best with what you have. Now, the best thing to do in this situation is to get a kitten because kittens are much more flexible and older cats accept kittens more readily. When I adopted Mr. Muffin, he was only about 3 weeks old. He had come crawling out from under a shed in the neighborhood. And I didn't even go through an introduction process with my cats. The introduction was very, very fast. They did a little bit of hissing, and then they did a little bit of sniffing, and then in a few hours, everything was okay. The caveat to a kitten is that if you have a much older cat, the kitten might be a little bit too energetic for the older cat, and it might annoy it over time. Now, if you have a very small space, the process of introduction will have to be accelerated because you cannot keep a cat in a bathroom for a very long period of time. Which means that after they are aware of each other and have smelled each other, crack the door open and see how they react. But again, avoid that face-off, avoid the stare-down, keep them distracted with a toy or a treat, get somebody to help you to do that. As time goes by, let them get closer and closer to each other without actually getting into a confrontation. Now, a fast process will be a lot less certain, but it can work, especially with cats that are younger and that have experienced being and living with other cats in the past. If you have really older cats that are set in their ways and are used to being alone, this will probably not work. Now, most cats will become friends or at least tolerate each other over time. But there are a few situations where, because of their personalities or because of the situation, your cats will just not get along. But I think it's worth the risk to keep your cats from being lonely, and I made a video on just that situation, which I will link right around here. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and share with anybody that you think might benefit from this information. And I will see you in the next one.